Hello everyone and welcome to Career. And we're building something I've wanted to have for a long time. So that thing I've always marveled about and I've never known how it worked is a dynamic damage system. So currently, when you're on a journey with your ship, you can just put in a waypoint into your autopilot and it will drive you there happily. And you can just go AFK and watch some YouTube videos or something like that. And that's not how it works on a real ship, from what I know. On a real ship, you would do maintenance, you would do damage repair if there was any damage, and you would do interesting work on the ship. And that's what I've always wanted to have in Stormworks. The gameplay currently, if you really get the autopilot and stuff like that, can be quite boring. And so what about we do something like I said, what about we make a dynamic damage system? So first I want to really summarize how that thing works, the dynamic damage system. So I've not really even seen anything like it on the workshop. I know there was a very popular tanker back in the day that has something like that. It's basically you hook up, for example, an electric hatch that will lead outside to the ocean to a microcontroller, and the microcontroller will use, for example, the weather, the g-forces and stuff like that to count when to open the hatch to simulate a realistic leak of some sorts. I know that's quite a bad explanation and it was probably very difficult to follow, but it's something similar to the dynamic sinking system, which basically works on the principle of if there are waves or wind, you should wait and sink the ship. But it's much more in depth. So that's what we're gonna work on today. It will be a very interesting thing to have, and I don't think we'll really use it on career, because on career we don't want to have leaks in our ship. Then again, we will have safety systems such as a leak detection system, and those will tell us if anything bad is happening. So we could think about that more later. And yeah, let's make this ship much more fun to use. So we will do a lot of logic this episode. And so basically I want a controller that will take different variables, and using those variables it will calculate when to, for example, open a hatch or turn a breaker off to simulate a short circuit and stuff like that. So I have absolutely no plan for this. So first let's get ourselves some wind. Let's get ourselves a multiplier. By entering a certain multiplier we will cut down the time it will take for something to break. So that could be interesting for like the people that do sinking ship survival and stuff like that. We'll leave 2 of these for g-forces, because I think there's a controller out there for something like this. And let's get an override, because we want to override. Let's get ourselves an output that will break or open or do something. Let's also get humidity, because humidity causes corrosion and stuff like that. And get ourselves, what should we do? Leave this blank for now. Okay, update it, and I want to see what the GeForce controller does. So now what we will do, or what principle this thing will work on, is there will be a timer, and the timer will be set for example, like 20 minutes or 180 minutes or something like that. And then all of these different variables will change how much time there is left. So for example, normally there would be, let's say, 60 minutes left, but because the ship has been in big waves for all of this time, it decreased the time from 60 minutes to, let's say, 20 minutes. Because when you put a ship through giant waves, it's going to cause some stress. It's going to cause the ship to break apart. Oh yes, I just remembered. We could set this one as temperature, because icing causes some problems too. First I want to do the G-forces. For that we need to check out how this thing works, because I don't know how to calculate our G-forces. Now we want to get the timer, so we should pick what timer we want to do. So we have a variable input one, but this one will only reset when it's off. That would mean that when it tells the door to open, it will open and then that goes off, and so the door will close. So we don't want that, so we want either RTO or RTF. So RTO is variable input timer, outputs an on signal when the timer reaches its duration. So that's what we want. If we use this one is less than its duration, that would mean that the door would be open the whole time until the timer reaches the duration. So let's do this one. This one can reset. And that's what I forgot about. Another input, that is repair. We want to be able to repair this. Right, and the repair is basically reset. And again, we forgot something else. That's enable. Maybe some people just want to play out with the ship, not sink it. Now let's do the duration. We will use this property number for that, and we want to do, I'm pretty sure this is in seconds, yeah, can do in text. Now we want seconds. So what shall we do as a default? Let's say hour and a half. That would be 5,400 seconds. That's the default value. Now there's a multiplier for this value, and we will need a function for that, and we will need this one with x, y, and z, and we will basically do the number divided by the multiplier, so x divided by y. So let's say there are 5,400 seconds remaining, so 90 minutes remaining. We put in a multiplier of 2, and we will get only 45 minutes. Now that all of this is finished, the main thing is finished, we can start using all the variables such as the g-forces, the temperature, the humidity, the wind. I made a module for it, of some kind. And I currently set it to half a minute. So when half a minute goes by, this light, which indicates the break thing, should turn on. I have a stopwatch set up on my phone. I'm going to start that when I enable this. So 3, 2, 1. And let's wait. So 30 seconds have gone by and doesn't seem to be working. So the problem was, also as you can see, it now works. We can, oh, why did it, weird. It now works. I even tried out if the multiplier works, and that works as well. But the problem was that if you divide something by 0, it will give you a weird number. It will give you a problem, it will give you infinity or something like that. And basically what this was doing is that it was getting, with all of these factors at 0, this was getting 0. And if you divide something by 0, it's going to give you infinity. So it was giving this thing infinity, and that caused a big problem. But that is now resolved, and yeah, that's good now. I resolved it by basically just putting a threshold on this, and if it's at 0 or 1, or from 0 to 1, it will switch the value to just 1. So it won't divide, it won't multiply, it will just stay it is the way it is. And if this crosses 1, it will use the multiplier here. So that's that. I'm gonna run some more tests on this. So I already made it a little bit, and I already made it because if you entered the multiplier and if you did, for example, 2, the time would go to 30 seconds from 60 seconds, let's say. But the problem that was there was that if you set the multiplier back down to 1, it would go back to 60 seconds and it would be problematic. And if we actually used it, it would just not work. So I remade it. I made it better. And what it now does is there is a multiplier and there are multiple thresholds, and if the multiplier is like quite low, it will, or let me show you. So let's select 2. It will now bleed off slowly that time. Now let's select 5, that's a very high multiplier. Now it will bleed off quickly. Select 1.5. It will bleed off quite slowly. But all in all, it will just bleed off the time. So now that should work. So now that we have this done, this dynamic damage system done, let's actually put it on the ship. So what I decided I will do is I want there to be 3 hatches or 3 things that can get damaged in the bow, 3 things that can get damaged in the midships, and 3 things here in the stern. So I'm going to think more about that, and I think I'm going to break somehow this door. But I'm going to think about that, and you are going to hopefully enjoy the time lapse. I made all the things that can go wrong. So there are some flooding hatches and breaking doors and even an electrical failure of all the lights and stuff. So that's that, and I haven't connected it all up, but like I haven't connected it up to all the variables, but I have connected the override function. So I am going to test all of these out. So I connected up all of these things, all of the override buttons, and they work. We are currently flooding, which means that they work. So now we just have to connect up the rest of the logic, which is definitely not going to be extremely painful. So I connected up all the electricity and did some of the boring work, such as also changing the time it will take it to break. And I also added the sassy coffee machine. It was used to on my older ships to either enter instant sinking or dynamic weather sinking. Now it's changed to do how many liters of coffee you want, but the liters of coffee are the multiplier, so that's great. There's also a turn off switch here, and yeah, it's fun. So I'm going to start the reactor, and we are just going to sail out somewhere else and see how it holds up. So I'm out here somewhere south of Dunk and north of the volcanic islands, and I also added one interesting thing, that is this small room where we can override all the faults and where we can see if the faults are on. And I also made this door lockable from my experience on multiplayer. But now I'm going to turn on the night for extra spookification and enjoy a kind of scene of this thing sinking.